Mic check. Good day and welcome to Living Well with Adena. My name is Dr. Kataka and we're pleased to welcome you to another edition. Thank you for spending your time with us today. Today we have 3 guests with us and I think this is going to be a little different of a show for you and we hope that you enjoy it. We're accompanied today with 2 physicians from Adena as well as a guest that's going to be showing us how to prepare a quick and simple meal for you. You know, during this COVID crisis and pandemic, a lot of our day-to-day routines have been disrupted. And a lot of us are working from home or virtually. Well, although that can cause some conveniences, it also produces some challenges for us. And for many of you, you may be noticing that you're a little closer to your refrigerator, perhaps, than you would be at work. So today we're going to talk about healthy living and healthy habits, and we hope that you'll have some key takeaways. You'll notice something a little different today as well. We are indeed masked today, and that's because of the number of guests that we have. We're not able to maintain the 6-foot social distancing that we've all been stressed to follow. So to be able to produce this for you, we are going to be masked today. So I wanted to be alerting to you to that difference. As always, a reminder, we want to hear from you. We want to hear from your questions and your input. So just feel free to enter that in the box below. And we do have staff that's already on hand to provide us those questions so our guests can get those answers for you. Well, without further ado, I'm going to introduce our guests today. So seated with me are, again, 2 physicians from Adena. The first physician is Dr. Kerry Blue, and he is a primary care physician, a family physician with Adena Family Medicine. And with Dr. Blue is Dr. White, who is a pediatrician with Adena Pediatrics. So welcome to the 2 of you. We're so glad that you joined us today.
Thank you.
I'm going to start with you, Dr. Blue. Tell us a little bit about yourself and how you ended up at Adena.
Sure, yeah. Well, again, thanks for having me on the show. As you stated, my name is Dr. Kerry Blue. I'm a provider over at Chillicothe Family Physicians. I know we have multiple family practice clinics in Chillicothe, but this is the one that's above the Adena Urgent Care. I've been with Adena for a little over a year now, but I've lived here in the Chillicothe area for about 6 years. So I'm pretty familiar with the area and the community. I'm married to my wife, and I have a 2-year-old daughter. And I find it ironic that I was asked to be part of this show because I've actually been trying to eat healthier myself and have been successful with that and have lost about 30 pounds in the last 6 months.
Awesome.
Yeah. So I'm excited to share my insight and tips for those who may be beginning their healthier lifestyle journey.
That's great, Dr. Blue. I'm going to come back to you in just a moment. Kind of talk to us more about that and kind of what was the genesis? How did you start with that? That's fantastic. And Dr. Kristen White, introduce yourselves for our viewers and tell us a little bit about you.
Thank you again for having me. I'm Dr. Kristen White. I am originally from Ross County. So I just started back with Adena August 1st after finishing my residency at Dayton Children's. So I'm happy to be back in the area and serving the community. So I live here with my husband, Corey, who teaches at Greenfield McLean, and we have 2 girls and then 1 on the way. So we're happy to be back.
Congratulations and welcome back.
Thank you.
So you grew up in Ross County?
Yes. So my parents farm right outside of Frankfort, and I went to Greenfield McLean, graduated from there, and was involved with Ross County 4-H, and I grew up showing pigs and doing sewing projects and all of the above. So we're excited to be back.
Well, we're glad that you're part of the 4-H program and that you're actively involved. And I think that will help for you to relate to some of the folks here in the pediatric population.
Yes.
And I'm sure you have some great stories to tell with
Oh,
them.
yeah.
Awesome. Maybe we'll get into a few of those if time allows. So Dr. Blue, you mentioned that you're on this kind of journey for weight loss. Take us back to when you decided, hey, I want to do something different.
Sure. So a lot of it was around the time that our daughter was born. As she was growing, I realized that I wanted to be a pretty active part of her life. And one of the things I realized was I was not at a healthy weight that would allow me to keep up with her energy level as she started walking and playing. So that's when I really focused on making the lifestyle changes, and so far it's been sticking and working.
So what was the first thing you decided to do? You know, when you made that decision, was it a diet? Was it exercise? Was it a combination?
It was a combination of both. I made some lifestyle changes in the kitchen as well as physical activity. The biggest thing I was focused on in the beginning was making sure I got a certain number of steps throughout the day. That would ensure at least a set number of calories I was burning. and then making those little changes in the kitchen here and there to allow me to eat healthier and stick with that habit change.
You know, as many of the viewers out here may understand or experience, they have some challenges with maybe starting too quickly. What was the hardest thing for you to do?
So the hardest thing was to adjust. That fortunately did not last long, maybe about a week and a half. My body started accepting the changes pretty well, and then the rest of it just got easier and easier as time went along.
Awesome. Now, you're a family physician, so you see a lot of patients in the area that have obesity, diabetes, and heart disease. In your experience, what has anything been more difficult for your patients in the last 6 months during the pandemic?
I've actually seen a pretty good mix of responses. For some of my patients, they've been struggling because of the pandemic causing them to be more homebound, which worsens depression, which leads to more snacking and less physical activity. However, on the other side, I've had other patients find that they're enjoying more home-cooked, healthier meals as opposed to eating out, and being limited on what we can do out in public. Some of my patients have found a new hobby in hiking and just getting out and exploring and being more physically active that way.
Thank you, Dr. Blue. We appreciate your personal insight into that. Maybe we'll get back with more of that as well.
Sure.
Dr. White, we know you're a pediatrician and you work with children and adolescents. From your perspective, what's one of the biggest challenges with childhood obesity?
I think there's a lot of challenges. I think number one, recognizing off the bat that, okay, there's starting to be an increase in trend in their weight or, decrease in their activity. And I think with, like Dr. Blue was saying, in the pandemic, we have seen an increase with getting a lot of well exams now and kids that haven't had a significant weight increase over the last 6 months. And so, just having parents recognize that and not, we're trying to bring it to them early so that we can prevent things from down the road. And we never want kids to lose weight. We want them to change their habits, and we want them to get better and become more active and things like that.
I think you said something very key there. So let's kind of hone in on that a little bit, Dr. White. You mentioned that the goal is not necessarily losing weight, it's actually changing lifestyle. Did I hear that correctly?
No, that's right on. And because we form those habits so early in life, and it's, a lot of times a big change, and not just for the child, but as a family, because, we're not going to single kids out. It's a lot of times just something that the family has to change. And, even in our own household, stop drinking so much pop, get more active, making better choices, even at the grocery store. I think that's where it kind of all starts. And so starting to think about those things earlier rather than later and changing those habits is a big part of, becoming more healthy in kids.
So Dr. White, how early can you start with healthy habits?
Oh, I think, right from when kids start eating solid foods, because, we're giving them, helping them with their tastes, and they're learning all these likes and dislikes. And there's studies that show it takes up to 30 times for a child to tell you that they don't actually like a piece of broccoli. You have to try it a lot of times. It can't just be that first time and then never offer it again. And I think one of the best pieces of advice I got as a parent myself with my children was, never make a separate meal for your kids than what you're eating. So we're not giving them chicken fingers and French fries every meal because they say they don't like the cooked carrots and the broccoli and, chicken and things like that. We're giving them those things and saying, you have to try it at least once, and so I've seen a big difference in my kids by making that part of our dinner time. We all eat the same thing as a family. So,
the pandemic has changed the world. That's obvious to all of us listening in on today's show. And so we've been home more. We know that it's a challenge for screen time before the pandemic.
For sure.
And the pandemic has had a lot of the children in our area just stay at home more and more on the screen.
Yeah.
Is there a recommendation from a pediatrician point of view of how much screen time is appropriate?
Yeah, so something that I was always taught in residency was the 5-2-1-0 rule. Getting 5 fruits and vegetables a day, 2 hours of activity, less than 1 hour of screen time, and then try to limit 0 sugary beverages. So that's something we always talk to families about, just to try to help them remember. But really, we don't recommend any screen time less than 2 years of age. They really don't need it. and then above that, less than 1 hour. And that's really, really hard, especially with the pandemic and kids doing homeschooling. They're on the computer most of the day. So it's kind of, you have to adjust, okay, they're doing their schoolwork, but recreational screen time, that means iPads, phones, TVs, any kind of screen time, really, you don't realize how it can add up so quickly.
1 hour. That's a great recommendation. I think I even might struggle with 1 hour.
Oh
of screen
yeah,
time
for
a
sure.
day. So for the benefit of our reviewers, one more time, it's 5-2-1-0.
Yes, so 5 servings of fruits or vegetables a day, 2 hours or more of activity, 1 hour or less of screen time, and then 0 being try to limiting your sweet beverages and things like that.
With regards to the 2 hours activity, would you recommend that parents or guardians join children in that activity?
Yeah, I mean, I think that's part of family time in the evening. We try to take walks in the evening, because it doesn't have to be you go out and run a mile. It can be walking. It can be playing kickball with your kids. It can be, lots of different things. It doesn't have to be like I go to the gym for 2 hours. You can really use your imagination, especially with it being summertime. It's a lot easier with getting outside and getting moving.
Great. Maybe we'll have you back on in the winter to talk about maybe what some of the tricks we can do when, when it becomes cold outside. Thank you very much. So Dr. Blue, I want to ask you the next couple of questions though. So what would be your advice, particularly knowing about your journey, what would be your advice to someone who's struggling having that kitchen available 24/7 when they're working from home? Any helpful hints there?
Yes, definitely. So having a kitchen around or available 24/7 can certainly be challenging. Typically, if you find yourself going, at least heading towards the kitchen, what I recommend would be to just take a moment, stop, and be mindful of your body's cues. Are you truly hungry, or do you feel like you're bored or thirsty? Sometimes when we are bored, just the act of eating is a way to entertain us for that time frame, and sometimes our need to do that will override any kind of hunger or hunger cues. Also, sometimes we can mistaken our body's thirst cues as actual hunger cues. So sometimes just drinking a glass of water is enough to kind of get rid of that urge to snack on something. If you do find yourself gravitating towards a snack, then I would recommend getting something that's less calorie dense, meaning that anything that's high in water content but low in calories. So those types of foods tend to fill you up without adding a bunch of calories to your daily budget.
What if you're not the primary shopper in the home? So you have someone else in the house or significant other who does the shopping, and they're the ones bringing home, let's say less than desirable options or more desirable options, depending on how you look at that, I suppose. How would you approach having that conversation with them?
Yeah, so I would just talk about what your goals are with them and see if it's something that they can kind of help you achieve or even join in your journey. It can certainly make it difficult to avoid or limit certain types of foods if that's all you have available to you. So it can certainly be a combined process for sure.
Now, Dr. Blue, we know there's a lot of fad diets out there, right? So one quick search of the internet will show us that there are dozens, if not more, different types of diets. Can you talk a little bit about, would you recommend a fad diet, and what are some of the pros and cons with those? And talk to us a little bit about that.
Sure. So fad diets on the surface definitely look really appealing because they have a lot of promises. And when you do the fad diets, you may see results. The problem is these results usually don't tend to be long-lasting results. So what I would recommend instead would be to focus more on what we talked about earlier, kind of like lifestyle changes or habits. And with that, the weight will come off. So with fad diets, there's a bunch of rules that you have to follow, and again, a lot of those just aren't sustainable. So we'll take the keto diet, for example. Keto diet, is successful for a lot of people to drop weight, but the caveat to that is you have to limit the amount of carbs that you eat. The problem with carbs is that's the majority of all the foods that taste really good. So doing that lifestyle for a few months might be something you can achieve, but doing that for the rest of your life may not be something attainable. Whereas if you focus more on limiting the amount of calories that you eat, that still allows you to have certain foods that may be deemed a no-no food, which will allow you to not get burned out or feel burned out.
Thank you. Dr. White, from a pediatrician point of view, children need nutrition to grow properly, develop properly, but not just physically, but also brain development, etc. So what would be your recommendations if someone was looking for a diet for a child? Would you recommend a fad diet for children?
Yeah, definitely not. And we don't recommend any sort of, specific diets like Dr. Blue was saying, the keto diets or anything. I have a bachelor's in nutrition, and we, the biggest thing we always said, these fad diets, like he said, don't last, and they have a lot of downsides. Like there are a lot of good carbs and fruits, and even just eating them sparingly, in some of the bad carbs, you could say, but they don't have lasting effects, and they can be depleting some of the biggest nutrients that kids need. So we would just recommend, anything sort of like a Weight Watcher sort of type of diet where you're learning about proportion control, eating things in moderation, and like Dr. Blue was saying, treating yourself. If you've had a really great week, you can have that one Reese cup or something because you don't get quite as burned out, but treating yourself and not completely limiting yourself, but also getting active. I think that's a huge part of it too.
Thank you. You mentioned a key word, Dr. White, portion control.
Yeah.
I'd love to hear from both of you. What's the easy way for the average person or viewer to understand what is portion control and how much should they put on a plate?
Yeah. I think one thing that you notice is when you go out to eat, they give you these huge portions of whatever you order. And so you end up eating them because it does taste good, but do you actually need that much food? No. And so a lot of times you can go with like the, size of your fist as a portion of meat that you should eat. And we talk about with kids, like the My Plate charts that we have about using a rainbow color of having something of every color of the rainbow on your plate to help with that, and having bigger portions of fruits and vegetables rather than the starches. And so that's what we talk about a lot with kids.
So I agree. Just sticking to the recommended serving sizes starting out is a great way to kind of retrain your thoughts on portion sizes. Anytime you go out to eat, of course, I agree, they always give you much more than what's needed for that meal. So sometimes that can carry over into our home everyday lives, and we can easily become out of control with our portion sizes.
There's another tool that's available for our viewers, actually for anyone who buys groceries in the United States, and that's a food label. One of the things that an aha moment I had was when I was eating breakfast one morning, sitting there eating the cereal, right? And I pour the cereal. I'm sure all of you do this. And I was sitting there and nothing else to do, so I'm going to read the back of the cereal box. And I saw the number of calories per serving. Well, that didn't throw me off too much, except that when I realized that the serving was calculated as a half a cup.
Yeah.
I don't know about you. I don't eat a half a cup of cereal. And I decided to pour out, the next time I did that, the amount of servings, and I realized I had 6 servings in my bowl, right? And so, Dr. Blue, can you just talk briefly about how someone can read this that serving label, and is that a helpful thing, do you think?
I do think it is, especially starting out until you kind of get a general idea of what a serving size of a certain type of food will look like. You can do little tricks like using a fist as a serving size for protein. But sometimes it does require getting out the measuring cup, actually measuring out and looking at it in your bowl or plate to see, okay, this is what an actual serving size of this is supposed to look like.
So, Dr. White, snacking. Right, we all snack, but for children in particular, can you make some recommendations to our viewers about maybe some snack options?
Yeah, so kids love to snack, just like adults. So I think always great snack options are fresh fruit, keeping different kinds of fruit in your fridge. Also, fresh vegetables are great. Carrot sticks, celery sticks with peanut butter. Peanut butter have great fats in them. There are bad fats, good fats. Peanut butter has a lot of great fats. And, you can make it fun. A lot of people do like the celery sticks, the ants on a log, with the peanut butter in the middle, the raisins on top. So you can make it fun. But I think, some of the best things is just to limit what you buy at the grocery store. So my kids do love fruit snacks, the princess kind and frozen and all that good stuff. So telling them they can have, 1 pack of those a day, but not having 4 of them in a day. So just trying to remember, and 2, dairy, like yogurt is a great snack for kids. So, you can freeze the kids' yogurts and then put them in their lunchbox. They're thawed by lunchtime. So great little snacks like that that last all day. So I think those are some great options to include dairy, fruits, vegetables. But 2, your kids do like those things. And so just giving them in moderation is okay.
Thank you. So a couple more questions before we introduce our new guest, who's going to walk us through preparing a quick snack, as you mentioned, Dr. White. So there's a difference between body shaming and being healthy, right? And so oftentimes the discussion or topic of being overweight or obese can be sensitive.
Mm-hmm.
What are some of your recommendations on addressing that with children? How do you approach that in a healthy way?
I think there's a huge psychological aspect to, especially with teenagers, about their weight, and they may not mention it out forth to their family or anything, but they may be self-conscious about it. So I think, using open-ended questions about not telling them things to do, not telling them you are obese, or, how do you feel about your weight, and what are some things that you do every day? Walk me through one of your daily, meals. What do you eat? What do you drink? What are things that you think you can change? Because them coming up with ideas is better than you just telling them do all of these things like a checkbox. So when they can come up with something themselves, a lot of times it's more success than you just telling them to go through check boxes of things.
So getting them involved in that dialogue and process can be very helpful.
Yeah.
How would you recommend to one of your patients, Dr. Blue, if they have concerns about their weight, what would be a way they can bring that up to you as a family physician?
Yeah, so a lot of it is, I discuss with them, what are your goals? So every person will have, a different environment that they are brought up in or constantly around. So they'll have different goals that they want to achieve. Whether it's the, middle-aged adult that wants to play more with their kids, or someone who just wants to get out of the house and be able, be comfortable walking down the street. So usually I start off with that, and then kind of like what Dr. White was saying, I do believe it's important to have them involved in the decision-making process. Otherwise, it does make it difficult if you just tell them what they need to know, need to do, because that's something they already kind of know, and they may have even tried before, but have just not been successful and become discouraged from it. So kind of talking with it, about goal making and ways to achieve those goals and have them involved can sometimes give them that confidence and motivation to start that journey and keep up with it.
Thank you. This is an episode or a topic about healthy living, right? So it's not just about obesity or overweight. Let's just talk briefly for the other end of the spectrum, Dr. White, right? There are, we know, children, teenagers in particular, who can develop eating disorders and may be underweight, which can be equally unhealthy.
Yes.
How can the average person who's listening in today recognize that perhaps there may be an eating disorder in a child?
Yeah, I mean, that's really hard. Eating disorders are a very difficult thing to recognize for the kids that have them. It's difficult for them to, self-recognize that and be able to admit that. Difficult to treat. So it's definitely like a team approach. It's not just one person. It's a whole collection of people that are helping these kids. But I think maybe some red flags that you could see with kids with eating disorders are binge eating is a big one, where they can go a couple days without eating much, and then they're eating everything in the house, and then retching afterwards, meaning like vomiting. Sometimes you can see discolorations on the teeth. You can see marks on their hands where they've self-induced vomiting. But then there's also where kids just restrict their diet, where they are afraid of gaining weight, more like an anorexia type picture. And a lot of these can be mixed. It's not black and white. But with anorexia, they're limiting the number of calories. They're obsessed with how many calories they're getting, how many steps they have. It becomes like an obsessive compulsive control. So those are some of the things that we look for. a lot of times with, I think we talk about this in girls, but it happens in boys too. And so we have to remember that asking these questions about self-image and how they view themselves in their well visits is important for boys as well as girls.
So well visits, let's talk about that for just a moment. As a family physician, Dr. Blue, and as a pediatrician, Dr. White, you both do healthy well child checks. Is that something there you're looking as well as weight and other types of things for those? So is it, can you let the viewers know how important it is to get an annual or well child exam?
Yeah. I think for children, we see them while they're babies a lot more frequently, and then it goes to yearly exams, and we're kind of looking at that trend, right, of BMI after the age of 2. And so we're watching to see if there's any jumps, if it's a gradual increase. And, we're looking at height, weight, which is what makes up the BMI. And 2, looking at family risk factors. We're asking about family history. Do you have a family history of diabetes, high blood pressure, cholesterol problems? Because those can be more hereditary. And so when a child is having an increasing BMI or we're checking their blood pressure, all these things we're looking at and getting concerned about. We start doing routine screenings for cholesterol. And so those are all things that we look at every single year and are monitoring.
Awesome. Dr. Blue?
Yep, so I agree. That yearly well visit that you get after you turn age 2 is definitely important to continue even after you may grow out of the pediatrician's office. It's important to come to see your doctor every year just to get those vitals checked, and if indicated, get your blood checked, just to kind of follow those trends and to address anything that may pop up sooner before it becomes a problem that can have long-lasting complications.
Yeah, because a lot of these things are very silent. You don't have any symptoms of high cholesterol, and you don't have any symptoms of high blood pressure most of the time. So coming in and screening for those things is important.
All right. One last question for you, Dr. White, before we introduce our next guest and have that exciting cooking demonstration. The last question I have is about the topic of breakfast. And so a lot of folks skip breakfast, right?
Yeah.
We're rushed in the morning. We're trying to get out the door.
Yep.
For those children going back to school, it's catching that bus. Is it healthy to skip breakfast? What would be your recommendation there?
Yeah, so I think especially for kids going to school and for us too, definitely never skip breakfast. And I know it's hard. I mean, I'm a mom of soon to be 3, and our oldest one just started kindergarten this morning. So it is that time you feel rushed. And so, but it's a jump start to their day. It's a jump start for their metabolism. Talking about metabolism, if you don't eat, your body kind of shuts down into this starvation mode of running off of different sort of metabolites in your body that don't work as well in your brain. We start running off of ketones instead of our sugar, and your brain loves sugar. So making sure that they have that breakfast will help, their education. It helps with their energy levels. So, it's a huge part of the day. And so trying to, look up different options for fast, quick things in the morning is, something worthwhile.
Thank you, Dr. White. Appreciate you and appreciate your time. I'm going to turn our attention now and introduce our next guest. Lisa Barledge is the Extension Educator from the Ohio State Extension Ross County office. Lisa, we're glad to have you here. Lisa, please tell us a little about yourself and also what you're going to prepare.
I'm happy to be here today. I am a family consumer science educator. So in my role, I take research that's done at the university and turn that into education things for our community. And so today I'm going to talk about food nutrition, a little bit about food budgeting, and about food safety, because those are some of my focuses. And so we're going to start by making a snack that is can be breakfast, it can be snack, it can be lunch, and it is a banana peanut butter pocket. And so I've already measured out some peanut butter. And we may want to just mention that some people have peanut allergy, and so you could certainly use a peanut substitute, or if you don't want to do peanuts, you could do a cream cheese. So if you whip a cream cheese, it also can work as your kind of glue in this recipe.
That's awesome, Lisa. So you mentioned a substitute for peanut butter. So what do we have here?
This one is a sunflower. I know there's a soy version. There's a variety of versions. You do have to stir this one because it's a natural, and so the oil is separated, so just stir it up. One of my coworkers' son has a peanut allergy, and so we really always focus on that in anything that we do. Then you're going to use just it had about 3 tablespoons of peanut butter, and we're going to use 1/4 teaspoon of cinnamon. This is kind of an optional thing, so if you don't like cinnamon, don't put it in there. And then just a little bit of honey. And so just a little over a teaspoon, a teaspoon and a half. I'm just going to kind of overfill, and then that'll be my teaspoon and a half. And if you don't want your honey to stick, if you use a little bit of spray on the spoon, and the same thing with the peanut butter, it won't stick.
That's a great little trick
It'll
there.
pour right out, so yes. And we're going to go ahead and turn our griddle on.
Okay. And
so
you're turning that
it's
on to?
about 300, 350.
Okay. And if you don't have a griddle at home, can you just use the stove?
Just use a pan on the stove.
Okay, like medium heat or so? Okay.
Yep. And so
Now,
you're just
could you
gonna,
also add a few other ingredients? Let's say you wanted some cashews in that or something. Or
right,
that would be
yes. And a friend made this the other day, and her little girl sprinkled granola on top to make it crunchy because she likes that crunch. So, you don't have to use very much, just sprinkle a little tiny bit. And then we are going to cut up some bananas. You can use any fruit that you want. So strawberries work really well sliced. Blueberries, you can just sprinkle them on top. And so I actually brought some kid-safe knives with me today because we were talking about children. And so these are available, a 3-pack for about $10 from any of the national vendors. You can also buy a lettuce knife at the store. It also works the same way. It's not sharp to the hand.
Look at that.
Yeah.
You're making Dr. White smile,
Yeah.
think, right? Because
it's not sharp to the hand, but it will cut a sweet potato. So you know, if you have kids involved with cooking, they're going to like it a lot more. They're going to want to help. They want to eat it because I did it. They want everybody in the family to taste it because I was involved in the cooking.
So what you're saying is, rather than making it for the child, you can actually involve them in the activity.
Right. You do the hot part.
Okay.
But have them go ahead and get all the prepping done.
And in your experience with that, have you found that children really engage better with that?
Yes, they do. They definitely do. If there's research about it and just personal preference. I have a daughter as well. She's in her 20s now, but if kids are involved, and a lot of times we invite kids to come to our classes that we teach, and they're going to have a lot more fun and enjoy it, and they're going to be a lot more inclined to try the food. So the next thing we're going to do is, and these are whole wheat tortillas.
Okay.
And you talked about looking at the label. We're going to look whole wheat flour is the first ingredient.
Okay.
Some foods will have a little stamp on it that helps you to know that they're whole grain, but
and then what are the calories on this one? I see that there's the label that we were talking about
that one
earlier
is
with Dr. Blue.
140 calories.
Okay.
Different sizes. I noticed there was a smaller tortilla, so if you were doing these for little kids, you might choose to do that smaller one. These were on sale. That was why I picked it,
Okay.
So I'm looking for a whole grain, and I'm looking for, and I just tore
So you
a
said
little
on
packet.
sale. So you could
Yes.
find a lot of these ingredients not expensively.
Right. I'm always looking for the bargain.
Okay.
And so we're just going to spread that peanut butter on half. So we don't need it on the whole thing. We're just going to spread it on half of the tortilla.
So spread that peanut butter. Okay, I gotcha.
And that becomes
I
our
think I can do
glue.
this.
It becomes our glue.
Okay.
So then we're just going to put our bananas on there, or the blueberries or strawberries, whatever fruit we chose. And as we said, we could have done cream cheese. We could do any. And that's where, like the friend's little girl sprinkled some granola on top to make it crunchy.
Are you able to show the audience there a little bit how you did that? Hold that up just a little bit
so
and
just
get an idea.
the cream cheese or peanut butter on the one half with the cinnamon.
I love
the
how you got the
fruit.
rows straight. I don't know that, that most of us could do that. That's awesome. Way to go.
So then
there.
we just fold it.
Okay,
and
so it
we're
looks a
just
little like
gonna-
a taco.
Yep, we're just going to put it on.
Okay.
We heard it kind of start to sizzle.
So the adult would do this part.
Yep,
Right,
adult's
okay.
going to do the hot part. You probably could stick it in a microwave, but it's not going to get that grill crispy that, you know, a lot of us like about a tortilla.
Okay.
If you want to make it for lunch, hummus, you know, spread a
Okay.
little hummus in there with some chopped up veggies. The shredded carrots work really well.
Now, Dr. White
Peppers.
mentioned about the importance of a healthy breakfast. And is this something that you could make ahead of time
Yes.
and save some time for the next
Yes.
morning? And how
Yes.
would you put that in the refrigerator then?
I
Or-
would, because we've cooked it, but it doesn't have to. We don't have to worry about. We put it in our lunch box. You know, it's going to be fine to eat for lunch. We can use a tortilla or use a pizza cutter to cut them into little pizza kind of wedges for kids. One of the people that's taking our class right now, she's works here at the hospital, and she has to be at work at 6 in the morning. And so she made them the night before, cut them, put them in a little container, and then she sent me a picture, and she's, you know, eating them for breakfast.
Awesome.
But this recipe is really good because it can be snack. It can be after school snack. It can be lunch. And you just switch out the ingredients. You could put refried beans in there as your glue and put a little bit of cheese and some peppers.
Okay.
So
You
think
mentioned
about.
a class. Let's talk a little bit about that. Can you tell
Yeah.
the viewers a little bit more about the class?
I'm
And
going to look just at this bottom.
okay, yeah, I don't want you to burn it. That would be bad.
So yeah, we just wanted to get kind of
That looks
crispy.
great.
Yes.
I'm going to lift that up here. I don't know if
Yes.
if you folks can see that, but it's getting a nice little crisp area
Little
there
crispy.
on the. It looks fantastic.
So,
Okay. So tell us about that class.
yeah, one of the classes that we offer the community is called Cooking Matters, and it is 6 weeks. And normally we would all be together. We would cook together. We would talk about food budgeting. We would talk about shopping. Everybody would cook together and we would eat together. Well, COVID messed all that up in March. And so we got special permission from our supervisors in Columbus to take our class online. And we are now in our 4th online class. Still meet 6 weeks. We spend about an hour and we do food demos like this. In our class, we talk about food budgeting. We talk about a lot about food safety. I washed my hands and we had everything sanitized before we set up. And then I have people do homework.
Okay.
So they email or text me a picture of their homework, and then I send them a gift card to go to the grocery store.
So
So-
I don't want you burning. We might want to do another
Yes,
check.
yes.
But so how does someone sign up for that class, and who's eligible? Is there a cost to it?
There is no cost.
Okay.
We
Free
have
is a good thing,
sponsor-
right?
Yes,
Okay.
we have sponsors. We work with the United Way of Ross County and with Adena to sponsor the program, and we will. We certainly want to try and encourage families that use assistance programs. So if your kids are getting free and reduced lunch, which a lot of Ross County schools, that's every child that goes there. So everybody would qualify. Anybody who's using any kind of going to food banks or anything like that, we would love to have them, but it's not limited to only them. So we try and have a mixture in our class of, a variety of people, and that makes it really good. So as we said, we just do that.
So that took about how long there, would you say?
I don't know, what, 3 or 4 minutes
Okay.
to cook, maybe?
All right. So it took about, a minute or two to prepare, a couple more minutes to cook. So really it's like a 5-minute meal or
Yeah,
snack, right?
and then you can just do this. And then you've got these little pizza-sized
that.
things that kids love, right?
Right, we have the mass, so unfortunately
Yeah,
I can't
can't
taste
eat
test
it.
this, unfortunately. But
And you could have
take a
made
look at that.
pizza too.
That
You
is
know, you could have
awesome.
put some sauce in there and a little bit of
Okay.
cheese and some veggies or pineapple. Same
Fantastic.
thing. And that's a couple minutes. And as we said, they can do all of this part. You do the hot part, and they're going to enjoy it a lot more. To sign up for Cooking Matters, they can call the OSU Extension Ross County office. A lot of the physicians out here at Adena will actually refer patients. Dr. Yandila is one of our advocates, and she frequently refers patients to us. But
So how could Dr. Blue or Dr. White, who are our guests today, make that referral over to you folks?
right, so our phone number is 740-702-3200.
Say that one more time.
740
In case they're writing it down. 740
702
702
3200.
3200. Okay.
Yep. And so OSU Extension Office. And we will be signing up people. We have one series that we're in the middle of right now. And we have another one that will start on October 5th and go 6 Monday evenings. And so we sign the adult up, but we encourage the family to do it together.
Awesome.
So we have a couple families
So
right
children
now.
are welcome.
Right. We have a couple families right now where the mom is signed up, but the kids are running off to cook the recipes and then text me pictures, which is kind of fun.
Fantastic. Well, this has been exciting. I'm thrilled that you came in today. Nice, quick, easy snack.
Yes.
This fits into that nice new numbers that Dr. White told us,
it does.
the 5210. And so that's fantastic. I want to thank you, Lisa, and the OSU Extension as well for taking your time out of your day. And we hope that you get a lot of folks involved in your class.
Yep.
I also want to take this time to thank our other guests as well. So we have Dr. Blue and Dr. White, who is a family physician and pediatrician, respectively, from Adena. We're grateful for their valuable input. I want to remind the folks that our next episode of Living Well with Adena is on September 10th, and then we'll be talking a little bit about pregnancy and newborn care, and particularly in how to manage that during the pandemic. Very grateful to all of you out there, and thank you, and have a wonderful day.